Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Hump Day. So SGPN Football Doc here, and as always on Wednesdays, we talk real football. That's right, we're talking defense, we're talking IDP. We're going through the top IDP injuries for NFL Week 11. We got a lot this week, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to kick it off with a nice little suspension to start off. Texans linebacker Denzel Perryman suspended for 3 games. For repeated unsportsmanlike conduct. We saw this similar to Broncos safety Kareem Jackson, where he got suspended for 4 games. Perryman is appealing, essentially, where he was a little bit of a headhunting situation, just like Jackson. Jackson got his appealed by 2 games, so I do expect Perryman might get a game off, but we'll find out more tomorrow there and see how long the Houston linebacker is suspended. All right, moving on to some players affecting the game for Thursday Night Football. We got an AFC North rivalry. We got the Bengals heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. So for the Bengals side of the ball, we got defensive end Sam Hubbard has already been ruled out. He did not practice. He has not practiced since the injury. This is concerning, really, for a high ankle injury, a little bit more bigger of a deal than a low ankle. High ankle above refers to the ligaments above the ankle, really the ligaments in between the 2 lower leg bones there, your syndesmosis. So it's a bit more serious of an injury. It requires more force. Typically around 4 to 6 weeks to come back. So you might want to see Hubbard out for a couple more weeks. Thankfully, on the other side, other edge, defensive end Trey Hendrickson, it looks like he avoided a major injury. He kind of had that weird hyperextension injury where Texans wide receiver Noah Brown kind of hit into his leg. But Hendrickson, thankfully, the MRI showed no structural damage. So he actually practiced fully today, and he's good to go for the game. So Hendrickson in, Hubbard out. On the Ravens side of the ball there, Marlon Humphrey, cornerback, he is going to be doubtful. I do not expect him to play. So there was originally fear it was an Achilles tear, Achilles injury. Thankfully, it was not the case. It's just a calf strain. But calf strains are no joke. I mean, we just saw, Joe Burrow went through during the offseason. Now, even if it's a mild injury, typically players miss about 2 weeks, and it has a high re-injury rate in those 2 weeks. So I would expect him, he has a chance to play next week, but I would probably advise against it. We'll see, high re-injury risk. So we'll see what he does next week. But for this week, expect him out there. All right, moving on to New York Giants linebacker Kayvon Thibodeaux. Why not make the Giants season worse? Obviously, they've been in shambles. He's out with the concussion, so he's in the concussion protocol. I do expect him out this week. This season, particularly, the NFL has been way more conservative with concussions. Call it the Tua effect, but historically, players would return a little bit around 7 days. They'd have a good chance to return that week, that next week, but most players are missing 1 game unless your name is Brock Purdy. I do expect Kayvon Thibodeaux. Let's be honest, Giants don't have anything to play for at this point. He's probably likely out, but he should be back the next week. Moving on. Steelers linebacker Kwon Alexander, torn Achilles, out for the season. They just lost Cole Holcomb out for the season. Now Kwon Alexander was supposed to help fill that void. He's out for the season, so they're getting very thin on the inside linebacker position. I do expect them to try to pick somebody up there, whether it's on the waiver wires or via trade. All right, now to some interesting ones here. So last 2, we got Vikings linebacker Jordan Hicks. He's expected out several weeks, put on the IR. This was a very kind of interesting injury, pretty rare. Essentially what happened is it started with a bruise to his shin, a pretty unassuming play where a player kind of swung around into his shin, and he unfortunately picked up what we call compartment syndrome. Essentially what happens there is there's pressure buildup from the bruising, which bruising is just blood rushing to an area, so there's swelling and bruising. All that pressure buildup, it was causing a lack of blood flow to those muscles and those nerves in the lower leg. And it was somewhere where it turned into an emergent condition. He had to have surgery to release that pressure to risk not losing that limb, right? So it's a pretty serious thing. Thankfully, they have excellent medical care at that hospital, so he was kind of able to help him get that surgery. But I expect him to be out. He's on IR. I'm not sure if he's going to return this season, so he's definitely going to be out for several weeks. Obviously, on IR, he's out at least 4 weeks. But I'd be pretty shocked if he does come back at all this season. We'll see if they make a postseason run. But expect Hicks to be out a while, and they expect it as well. They already re-signed linebacker Anthony Barr. All right, last one up here. Cowboys linebacker Leighton Vander Esch out for the season with a neck injury. This one is pretty tough. It's pretty brutal as far as, he was injured his neck again in week 6. He's had a long storied history of neck injuries. In 2019, he had his first one where they had to go in and remove a nerve there and kind of deal with some nerve damage that he was dealing with in his neck. He had in 2020, he had collarbone surgery, and in 2022, he missed the last 4 games with a stinger in his neck. another neck injury, kind of nerve injury in there. So the neck injuries are difficult. We've seen players have to retire from this before. Chris Carson being the one who is most recent. Daniel Jones dealt with this last season or in 2021 and this season. So, neck injuries are very scary. They're something you do not want to play with, not just on a football player, but we're talking about quality of life at this point. So this could be a potentially career-threatening injury for Vander Esch. So we'll see how he goes there. Cowboys linebackers Damone Clark and Marquise Bell have filled in nicely there. But Vander Esch, he's out for the season. We may be done for the career there. All right, guys, those are your top Week 11 IDP injury updates. For fantasy football, college football, IDP, if it's football, it's injuries, I'm talking about it. Follow me on X or on TikTok at SGPN Football Doc. Catch me and Gary Van Dyke, IDP Tipster, every Sunday live for your IDP updates. And if you're looking for some action, some gambling action there, we're starting a new Friday Underdogs Fantasy. He went 5 for 5 in his picks last week. I hit a plus 500, a plus 900. So come win with us. Let's have a week. Let's go football. And hey, I'm out.